Welcome back to episode 2 of AZ Drone. I'm Greg.
And I'm Rich, and today we're going to talk about something pretty fun. If you just bought your first drone, there are some things you should know.
Yep, and so what are you going to do first when you get your drone, and what things you should avoid doing when you get your first drone? And I think the first thing is you're going to plug in the batteries and charge them, because that's going to take a little bit of time to get going.
Yeah, I picked up my second drone, not my first drone, but my second drone is my Mavic Pro, and I picked this up in August of 2017. So I was really excited. I got home. I said, I'm going to set this thing up. I'm going to go have some fun. That didn't happen. When I plugged the drone in, I connected the DJI Go 4 app. I had firmware updates waiting for me. I had software updates for the app, and I needed a fully charged battery. And bottom line, it was over 45 minutes of updates, and my iPhone battery wasn't fully charged at the time. So day number 1 of drone ownership for me was unboxing, charging, and doing a lot of updates.
Mm-hmm. And then I would say I'm sure some of you will do this, but before you get your drone, when it's shipped and it's on its way, open up the manual and read the manual. I think a lot of people fail to do this. I'm the type of person that I bought something and I'd love to just go download the manual and then just read it completely from start to the end, so I know what's happening when I get my drone. But there's a lot of different things that you may not know about, and especially if this is your first drone, which I think these, like the Mavic Pro, has really opened up the market to everyone that wants to get a drone these days. This is fairly inexpensive. It's not a toy. Remember, this is not a toy. You can do a lot of damage with these things to people and property, and so you got to be careful with that.
Yep. And so one of the things I'd recommend after you've unboxed and you've realized, hey, I've got a lot of software updates and things to do, you need to go over to the FAA's website. So while you're in your holding pattern, while you're waiting to get that first drone flight in, whether you're intending on being a hobbyist or a commercial pilot, you need to register the drone. So drone registration is back for both hobbyists as well as commercial pilots. So you need to take the time to go register and do the right thing. There's no downside to doing the right thing. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, well, they're tracking my drone. I got a license plate on the back of my truck. I've got a license plate on my Airstream trailer. If I was an off-road vehicle owner, I'd have a license plate on that and registration. This is no different. This is not an invasion of our privacy, so go ahead and put that one away.
Now remember too, on top of this is every airplane that flies up there has a tail number on it that's very specific to the airplane. And remember, it'll cost you if the FAA catches you. If you get into an accident, something happens, and your drone doesn't have the markings on them, you haven't registered it, it's going to cost you a lot more than the $5 that the FAA charges. So I agree with Rich. Go to the website. And actually, we have a video on our on our channel that shows you how to register the drone. It's very straightforward, very simple. Now we got to talk about this because we talked about it before we started the video. There are some websites that will charge you a lot more money than the FAA does, and to really not provide any additional service. And if you type on Google, and we'll show you a print screen of Google what it looks like, the first couple links that show up are links that are
they're paid
advertising from Google. And they'll charge you, what, 25 to, what did you see, 60 bucks?
So one of the services is $25 to help you register your drone with the FAA. Another service is $60 to register you with the FAA. If you go to the FAA's website, which is faadronezone.faa.gov, it's $5. And one of the things that I really got a kick out of looking at these other guys is they say that they're streamlining the process for you and making it easier than the FAA's website. The FAA Drone Zone registration of your drone is very simple. It's not going to take a lot of time. and it's only going to cost you $5.
And it's
So
not something
be
that you
careful.
can, yeah, it's not something that you can actually mess up. It's very basic information. What's the serial number on your drone? The same thing that you're going to give to these people for 25 or $60. But we don't need to give you any advertising. I think they probably catch a few people here and there. But so if you spend more than $5, there is something wrong, cancel, and then go find a .gov, FAA.gov website. And
Yeah.
again, we have a video check out on our channel that shows you how to do it for as a commercial operator, and also shows you a little bit on how to do it as a non-commercial operator.
Yeah. So with your first drone, doing that unboxing, charging the batteries, dealing with the firmware, because most of you are probably going to get a DJI drone, so this is the process. So go ahead, get your registration done, and also start reading and learning about the new hobby or business that you're getting into. So that means you can go by the FAA's website, start learning some of the rules and regulations. Even if you're not intending on being a commercial pilot, there are still rules that apply to you. As a hobbyist, you can't just crack out your drone and start flying near an airport. So we're going to be talking about some of those things, but please learn a little bit about your new hobby or your new business before you start flying, because you acting responsibly helps us do our jobs as well.
Yep.
So, we really appreciate you acting responsibly.
And I think there is if you don't want to look up all the rules, there are some really basic rules. And the first one is, do not fly over people, and that we see that even with commercial operators that still do the stupid thing of flying over people. Not something that we want to see. If this thing falls from a couple 100 feet on your face, it's going to hurt, and actually it probably could kill you. And so we don't want to see this in the news. The second thing is flying within the vicinity of an airport. If you're within 5 miles of an airport, you need to contact the people in charge of the airport and get permission to fly in that airspace. Now remember, we're not alone. If you're close to an airport, there's other people flying in manned aircraft, and you can be a major danger for them. This, through a windshield or through a propeller or ingested inside of an engine, can create a lot of damage. And I see people, and I always argue online with people that say, oh, this is not going to hurt anything, this is not a bird. Remember, a bird is going to fly away from an airplane because it's going to see it and it doesn't want to die. This doesn't have any intelligence other than you controlling the airplane and the aircraft, and you're not going to see an airplane in the sky flying towards you, depending on how you're oriented, and then hit the cockpit or hit something on the airplane can be a major disaster. So we want to stay away from that, and we want to make sure we don't fly close to airports.
So there's a learning curve, and we're going to talk more about the learning curve. We want you to have fun flying your drones, and we have fun flying our drones. But when you first get your your first drone, it's a really good idea to start the learning process. Or before you even get your first drone, you can start the learning process. So to wrap up on getting your first drone, bottom line, here's what you're going to do. You're going to unbox your drone. You're going to put your batteries on charge. You're going to make sure that you've got your smartphone charged if you're using that as a controller. And then you're going to end up downloading software and firmware. And while all this is going on, you can go ahead to the FAA.dronezone.faa.gov and register your drone. So day number 1 is probably going to be charging batteries, updating firmware, updating software. Mm-hmm. And so just go ahead and write that off. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a rush. Do things right so that your first flight's going to be a lot of fun. And there are a lot of rules out there. These are things you're going to need to learn about, and you're going to need to figure out where the safe spaces are around you where you can do your first test flights. But we want to make sure that you have a good time, so we wanted to prep you and give you an idea up front that when you unbox the drone 15 minutes later, you're most likely not going to be flying it.
Correct.
So.
Plus, that's Also assuming that the weather is actually good outside and that there's not too much wind, cloud, rain, and all that good stuff. So even when you're ready to fly, you may or may not be ready to fly because the weather is not good. Now, that being said, it just reminded me, on the app on DJI Go 4, there's a simulator that you can use. And if you have an iPad, you can actually plug in everything to the iPad, and you can fly the drone in a simulator and learn the controls. So learn what up and down and forward and to the side and all that means before you even get up in the air for real. So yeah. I've used that a lot because the weather was bad when I got mine. Just had to practice doing something else.
And all the other things we talked about in this video, you're going to be learning them over time. We'll be talking about them. And there's also a lot of other great channels out there on YouTube. So if you want to find out more about getting a commercial license, what the rules are for you as a hobbyist, we'll be doing some of those. But if you're in a hurry and you're binge watching about drones because your drone is on its way, there are a ton of great channels out there. And so you can search around. There's some really good information on the internet. And of course, as always, there's also some disinformation on the internet. So, you know, watch the videos, learn what you need to, and pilot safe. You know, be a smart pilot. There's, you know, what all the FAA rules come down to is pretty simple. Mm-hmm. Don't be dumb. Yep. Don't do dumb things. Don't fly the drone at people.
And if you're in doubt, always go to the FAA website, and that's where you'll find information. It's pretty cut and dry in most cases. There's a few rules that are open for interpretation, but most of it is on the FAA website, and they'll tell you exactly what you need to be doing, what you should not be doing. And remember, there's should and must. Must, you have to do it. Should is a recommendation. So you have to balance the two right there.
Yeah. And, you know, since you've watched this and you've gotten your first drone and you're on a learning, you know, you're on the learning spree, Greg has a video up here on AZ Drone talking about FAA Drone Zone. It's worth a watch. And we haven't even started advertising this channel, and we've already had 500 views of it. So we know people are looking to learn more. So check out the, we'll actually put it on the top of the screen here at the end, a link to that video on the FAA Drone Zone. So thanks for stopping in and watching our official episode number 2.
Yep.
And episode number 3, we have any ideas what we're doing?
No, not yet, but I'm sure we'll see you there in a minute.
Yep. Well, for you it might be a day. For us it'll be a minute.
No, they're binge watching.
Okay.
This is like Netflix.
All right. I hope we're as fun as Netflix.
Well, hope so.